I came home early from work that rainy Thursday afternoon, opened the bedroom door, and saw my wife in the arms of another man. The image burned itself into my mind instantly and forever. There she was, Sarah, the woman I had loved for 14 years, lying in our bed with someone else. The sheets were tangled around their bodies. His hand rested on her waist with a familiarity that made my stomach twist. Her auburn hair spilled across the pillow I had kissed goodnight just that morning. The soft gray lamp on the nightstand cast a warm, intimate glow over the room, highlighting the curve of her bare shoulder. For a long, suffocating moment, time seemed to stop. The only sound was the rain hammering against the window and the frantic beating of my own heart in my ears. Sarah's eyes met mine. The color drained from her face in an instant. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a broken whisper, "Mark, oh God, it's not what you think." The man beside her, someone I had never seen before, sat up quickly, reaching for his shirt, his movements clumsy with shock. I stood frozen in the doorway, my briefcase still in my hand, rain dripping from my coat onto the hardwood floor. The familiar scent of our bedroom, lavender linen spray mixed with Sarah's vanilla perfume, now felt sickeningly wrong. 14 years. 2 children. A home we had built together in the suburbs of Portland. Countless promises whispered in the dark. All of it fractured in one devastating second. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I simply turned around, walked downstairs, and sat on the living room couch in silence, staring at the family photos on the wall while the rain continued its relentless rhythm outside. That afternoon marked the beginning of the end of the life I thought I knew. But what I didn't realize then was how many lies had led to this moment, and how many more secrets were still waiting to surface. The shocking discovery in the bedroom served as the explosive culmination of months of small, repeated behaviors that had slowly eroded the foundation of our marriage. Sarah's increasing, late nights at work, her growing emotional distance, and the subtle changes in her daily habits were not isolated incidents but causes that accumulated over time, creating the conditions for the affair to develop and eventually be discovered. My decision to come home early that day, triggered by a cancelled meeting, acted as the final trigger that brought everything into the light. This cause-effect chain illustrates how betrayal rarely happens in a vacuum. It grows from gradual emotional disconnection that goes unaddressed. The immediate effect was profound psychological shock, instantly shifting the power dynamic in our relationship and forcing me into a state of hyper-awareness and grief. The discovery didn't just reveal infidelity, it exposed the fragility of the trust one had taken for granted for 14 years. Tension had been quietly escalating through micro-moments I had rationalized away, and this single event transformed vague unease into undeniable reality. The interpersonal consequences were immediate. Sarah lost the ability to hide behind plausible excuses, while I lost the comforting illusion of a stable marriage. This moment set in motion a chain reaction that would eventually involve our children, extended family, and hidden financial secrets, proving that one exposed lie often pulls apart an entire web of deception. The weeks before that Thursday had felt deceptively normal, yet looking back, the warning signs were everywhere, subtle, easy to dismiss if you weren't looking for them. Mornings in our house usually began with the rich aroma of coffee brewing and the sound of our children getting ready for school. Emily, 12, would practice her flute in the living room, the clear notes drifting through the air. Noah, 9, would chatter about soccer while eating cereal. Sarah moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, packing lunches and checking her phone more often than usual. She had been promoted 6 months earlier to senior project manager at her marketing agency, which came with longer hours and more client dinners. At first, I was proud of her. But gradually, the late nights increased. She would text me around 6 p.m., running late again, don't wait up. Love you. I would kiss her goodbye in the morning, noticing how her hugs had become quicker, her smiles a little more distracted. Her perfume, a new, warmer scent with notes of sandalwood, seemed stronger lately. One evening, I came home to find her in the kitchen, stirring pasta sauce. The savory smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air. She turned and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "How was your day?" she asked, but her eyes flicked back to her phone screen almost immediately. "Fine," I replied. "Yours?" "Exhausting. Big presentation tomorrow." She seemed tense, her shoulders slightly raised. When I tried to massage them later that night, she gently pulled away, saying she was too tired. There were brighter moments too. On weekends, she would still make pancakes for the kids, laughing as Noah got flour on his nose. One Sunday afternoon, we took a family walk in the park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. Sarah held my hand for a while, and for a short time, everything felt like it used to. But then came the small mysteries. I found a receipt in her coat pocket for an expensive Italian restaurant, a place we had never been to together. The date was a night she told me she was working late. When I casually asked about it, she barely blinked. "Oh, that was a team dinner with a difficult client. I didn't want to bore you with the details." Her explanation sounded reasonable. Yet something in the way her fingers tightened around her coffee mug made me pause. Another night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to the faint glow of her phone screen. She was typing quickly, a small, private smile on her lips before she noticed me watching and quickly turned it face down. "Work emergency," she whispered, then rolled over. I lay awake for hours afterward, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was being paranoid. The ordinary rhythm of our life continued, but beneath it, invisible cracks were spreading. In this stage of ordinary life laced with early trouble, Sarah appears caught in a deep internal conflict between her identity as a devoted wife and mother and her desire for validation, excitement, and autonomy that she felt was fading in our long-term marriage. Her new perfume, increased phone privacy, and vague explanations suggest emotional substitution, seeking attention and admiration outside the relationship rather than confronting growing dissatisfaction with routine and career pressures. For me, the psychology revolved around cognitive dissonance and denial. I loved the Sarah I had known for 14 years and feared that acknowledging the small inconsistencies would threaten our family's stability. This created an inner tension where love coexisted with creeping doubt. My tendency to rationalize her behavior protected me from discomfort but also prevented early intervention. The contrast between warm family moments and distant microbehaviors highlights how betrayal often begins not with hatred, but with quiet emotional drift and the human need to feel desired. Sensory cues like scents, touches, and silences became early indicators of the growing distance, making the psychological realism palpable. These subtle signs set the foundation for later suspicion while showing how easily we can overlook problems when we are invested in preserving the status quo. Suspicion didn't arrive suddenly, it crept in like fog, thickening slowly until I could no longer see clearly. Sarah's schedule became more unpredictable. More client meetings that ran late, more weekend, strategy sessions. She started taking unusual routes home, claiming traffic was better that way. Her mood swings grew more pronounced, sometimes distant and irritable, other times overly affectionate in a way that felt almost compensatory. One Friday evening, our neighbor Mrs. Reynolds mentioned casually while watering her flowers, "I saw Sarah's car parked near the new boutique hotel downtown last week. She was with a tall man in a dark coat. Looked like they were having a serious conversation." I laughed it off. Probably a work meeting. But the seed was planted. At home, Emily began asking questions. "Why does Mom smile so much when she's texting lately?" Her innocent observation hit harder than any neighbor's comment. I started noticing hidden chat flashes on her phone, messages that disappeared within seconds. One night, while she was in the shower, I saw a notification from Alex R., a name I didn't recognize. When I asked who it was, she said it was a new freelancer the agency had hired. Completely professional, she assured me, but her fingers twisted the edge of her towel a little too tightly. Then came the red herring that almost convinced me I was paranoid. Sarah suggested we go away for a romantic weekend to reconnect. We spent 2 days at a cabin in the mountains, surrounded by pine trees and crisp autumn air. She was attentive, passionate even. For 48 hours, I felt relieved, believing the distance had been nothing more than work stress. But the Monday after we returned, I found a hotel key card in her purse from the very same week she claimed to be overloaded with deadlines, a different hotel, different date. The contradictions were piling up, and the psychological pressure was becoming harder to ignore. Every explanation seemed plausible until the next clue appeared. I was no longer sure what was real. This section clearly demonstrates cognitive biases at work. I engaged heavily in confirmation bias and motivated reasoning, desperately clinging to Sarah's explanations and the romantic weekend as proof that my suspicions were unfounded. Sarah likely constructed self-justifying narratives that framed her secret meetings as harmless or necessary for her career, protecting her self-image as a good wife and mother. The red herrings, the romantic getaway, the freelancer story, the neighbor's ambiguous sighting, fed my self-deception, allowing me to delay facing the painful truth. This created mounting internal conflict and emotional exhaustion. The contrast between past emotional closeness and current secrecy became stark, yet I continued to minimize the discrepancies to preserve the stability of our family life. These biases, while temporarily protective, only intensified the eventual devastation when reality could no longer be avoided. The discovery in our bedroom didn't end my search for truth, it only intensified it. I needed to understand how deep the deception ran, even as the knowledge tore me apart. In the days that followed, I moved into the guest room. The house felt colder, the familiar sense now laced with betrayal. Sarah tried to talk, but I asked for space. Meanwhile, my mind worked relentlessly. I began gathering proof with quiet, methodical desperation. One evening while Sarah was at a late client dinner, I checked the mileage on her car. It didn't match the distance to her office. Another night, I noticed unusual charges on our joint credit card, a boutique hotel downtown and expensive wine purchases she had never mentioned. Red herrings continued to mislead me. Sarah's sister, Lauren, called one afternoon and casually said Sarah had been helping her with personal matters. When I pressed gently, Lauren became evasive, claiming it was women's stuff. For a moment, I almost believed the affair was imagined, perhaps Sarah was simply overwhelmed and seeking support from family. But then came stronger evidence. I installed a discreet location tracking app on her phone during a moment she left it charging in the kitchen. The data showed repeated visits to a quiet residential area on the east side of Portland, nowhere near her office. One afternoon, driven by a mix of dread and necessity, I followed the route. The autumn leaves glowed golden under weak sunlight as I parked discreetly near a modern apartment complex. There, I saw her. Sarah stepped out of her car and walked into the building. 20 minutes later, the same tall man from our bedroom emerged to greet her at the entrance. They embraced briefly, not passionately, but with the comfortable intimacy of people who had known each other for some time. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The air inside the car felt suffocating. Still, doubt lingered. Was he a colleague? A friend? The mind clings to alternatives when the truth is unbearable. A secondary twist emerged involving financial secrecy. While reviewing documents for our tax filing, I discovered several unexplained withdrawals from our savings account, small at first, then larger. When I confronted Sarah about the money, she claimed it was to help her sister Lauren with medical bills. Lauren later confirmed part of the story but avoided eye contact during our phone call. I began to suspect she knew more than she admitted and was protecting Sarah. The children became unintentional catalysts. One evening, Noah asked innocently while I helped him with homework, "Why does Mom sometimes call someone Alex when she thinks we're asleep?" The name matched the contact I had seen flashing on her phone. Emily, more perceptive, started having trouble sleeping and asked me directly if Mommy and Daddy were fighting. Her anxious eyes reflected the tension filling our home. Every lead twisted. Background checks revealed that Alexander Reed, was a former client turned personal acquaintance. Sarah had met him during a project 8 months ago. The hotel visits, the deleted messages, the unusual routes, all began to align into a devastating pattern. The moral weight of my investigation crushed me. I hated spying, yet stopping felt impossible. Nights became sleepless. I would lie in the guest room, the cool sheets unfamiliar against my skin, listening to the distant sound of Sarah moving around the house, wondering how many nights she had lied beside me while thinking of someone else. The web of secrets was tightening, and every thread led back to the central betrayal. During the gathering of proof, both characters relied heavily on defense mechanisms to cope with unbearable reality. I used rationalization to justify invasive actions like tracking and following her, framing them as necessary to protect the children and gain clarity rather than acknowledging the violation of trust. Denial still flickered, allowing me to briefly accept Sarah's explanations about helping her sister. Sarah likely employed compartmentalization, separating her secret life with Alex from her identity as wife and mother, and minimization, telling herself the affair was emotional support rather than betrayal. The overlapping secrets, particularly the financial withdrawals and her sister's partial protection, provided material for continued self-deception. These mechanisms delayed the full emotional collapse but intensified psychological pressure, turning daily life into a state of chronic anxiety and hypervigilance. The children's innocent remarks acted as emotional triggers that weakened my defenses, pushing me closer to confrontation. Sensory details, the chill of the guest room sheets, the grip on the steering wheel, externalized the inner turmoil, making the slow erosion of denial feel visceral and realistic. The climax came on a cold, rainy evening 2 weeks later. The children were staying overnight at my parents' house, a rare arrangement I had arranged deliberately. The house was silent except for the steady patter of rain against the windows. I laid everything on the dining table under the warm overhead light, printed screenshots of deleted messages, hotel receipts, bank records showing the secret withdrawals, location history, and even a photograph I had taken from a distance of Sarah and Alex together. When Sarah walked through the front door, shaking rain from her coat, she froze at the sight of the evidence. "Mark, what is this?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I spoke calmly, though my heart pounded. "I know about Alex. I know how long it's been going on. I know about the money you've been taking out. I know you lied about working late the night I found you in our bed." Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Sarah sank into a chair, her hands trembling as she picked up one of the receipts. Tears welled in her eyes. "It started as emotional support," she said finally, her voice cracking. "He listened when I felt overwhelmed with work and the kids. You were so focused on your own career. I felt invisible. It became physical 4 months ago." Her confession spilled out in waves. Alex had made her feel desired and alive again, something she said had faded in our marriage after 14 years of routine. The financial secrecy was tied to the affair too. She had been helping Alex with a business venture he was starting, using our savings without telling me. Then came the double twist. Sarah revealed that my own emotional withdrawal wasn't the only hidden truth. 2 years earlier, I had developed a close friendship with a female colleague during a difficult project. While nothing physical ever happened, Sarah had misinterpreted the late nights and emotional sharing as emotional infidelity. She used that perceived betrayal to justify her own actions, a chain reaction of assumed hurts. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered through tears, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. The confrontation lasted until early morning. There were no dramatic screams, only raw pain, anger, grief, and exhausted silences. We both cried. The air in the room grew heavy with the scent of rain and regret. By dawn, it was clear, the marriage, as we had known it, was irreparably broken. The confrontation was driven by months of suppressed emotions finally breaking through. My accumulated grief, betrayal trauma, anger, and desperate need for truth compelled me to present the undeniable evidence with calm but devastating clarity. Sarah's actions during the confrontation were fueled by overwhelming guilt, fear of losing her family, defensive shame, and a simultaneous relief at no longer carrying the weight of secrecy. The empty house removed external barriers, allowing raw vulnerability to surface. Key emotional triggers, seeing the compiled proof and the mention of the children, intensified her tears and confession. This climax revealed how unmet needs for validation, attention, and feeling desired can drive even loving partners toward destructive choices when left unaddressed for too long. The double twist reframed earlier events, showing how perceived emotional betrayals on both sides created a dangerous cycle. The collision of the main affair with financial secrecy and family tension made the moment feel inevitable. Nonverbal cues, trembling hands, pulled away touch, heavy silences, carried as much weight as words, grounding the scene in psychological realism. In the months that followed, our lives fractured and slowly began to reform into something new. Sarah and I separated. She moved into a small apartment closer to her office while we negotiated custody and finances. The divorce process was painful but civil. We told the children together one quiet Sunday morning in the living room. Emily cried quietly. Noah asked if it was his fault. Their small, confused faces under the soft morning light remain one of the hardest memories I carry. We established a co-parenting schedule focused on minimizing disruption for them. Therapy became essential, for me individually, and for the children. Sarah also sought counseling, acknowledging the depth of her choices and their consequences. The financial entanglement with Alex was resolved during mediation. Sarah returned the withdrawn funds and ended all contact with him. Her sister Lauren eventually admitted she had suspected the affair but chose silence out of misplaced loyalty to Sarah. As winter turned to spring, I found small moments of peace. Early morning runs along the river trail, the crisp air filling my lungs. Quiet evenings reading with the children, their warm presence a reminder that life continued. I rediscovered photography, something I had abandoned years ago, capturing the changing light over Portland's bridges. The pain didn't vanish, but it changed shape. It became a teacher rather than a constant wound. I realized that trust can break in a single devastating moment, but resilience is rebuilt slowly, day by day, through honest reflection and new boundaries. For the first time in many years, my life began to feel truly my own again, quieter, sometimes lonely, but authentic. The chapter of our marriage had closed, but life moved on quietly. Stepping back from the entire narrative, this story reveals a universal lesson about relationships. Betrayal is rarely caused by one dramatic event, but by the slow accumulation of emotional distance, unvoiced needs, and self-deceptive narratives that both partners construct to avoid discomfort. Trust is not a permanent state, it requires continuous nurturing through presence, honest communication, and mutual vulnerability. When these erode, even strong marriages become vulnerable to external temptations that offer validation and excitement. The husband's journey from shock and obsessive investigation to painful acceptance and gradual empowerment illustrates post-betrayal growth. Sarah's actions stemmed from deep unmet needs for feeling desired and autonomous, complicated by her perception of emotional neglect. The interwoven subplots, financial secrecy, the sister's protective silence, and the children's innocent observations, created a complex web that made the betrayal feel both shocking and inevitable. Ultimately, the narrative teaches that while infidelity can destroy a marriage, it does not have to destroy the individual. From devastation can emerge greater self-awareness, clearer boundaries, and the quiet strength to rebuild a more authentic life. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again, but new ones can open if we find the courage to walk through the pain.